Sir, you are mute.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Audible.
Okay, okay. Fine. So nice to see you, Lakshay. We met in the last class, and I hope you'll continue in the coming classes as well. And nice to see all of you, all of the other people also. Some of you may be coming for the first time. This subject is known as financial risk management. I'll be teaching you FRM, and I'll also be sharing this other paper, fixed income securities, with Manisha madam. Right, so we have a class tomorrow for fixed income securities. We'll continue with that in the offline class, but today the focus will be on financial risk management. The syllabus I've told in the first class, I'll repeat once again. This is the main syllabus. As you can see on the screen, the first unit is about the introduction to different kinds of financial risks. So there are a variety of risks that all companies are facing. This is from the company's perspective, but it's also applicable. The subject is applicable even from a personal investing standpoint. Even if you're looking at managing your own portfolio, this subject is quite relevant. So the first unit is about the basics of financial risk, different kinds. Why do we need to manage risk? What are the sources of risk, and how do we measure and tackle various kinds of risk? The second risk, unit is about market risk. So variety of market risk. How do we again measure and tackle these different kinds of market risks? These, as we know, market risks are not completely under our control, but we can still take some measures to control them to keep them up to a certain limit only. Credit risk is for the third part of the third unit. As we are aware that credit risk is risk of default, especially for companies in the banking sector, for in the finance domain who are giving loans, they are subject to this credit risk. And even otherwise, if you're investing in a bond or in a debenture, you're in a way giving loan to a particular enterprise or even to the government if you're buying government bonds. And all of this is subject to default. So credit risk is covered in the third unit, while the fourth unit is about all the other kinds of risks which are not covered under market risk and credit risk. They'll come under the fourth unit, including operational risk, liquidity risk, sovereign risk. This is part of the fourth unit. While the last unit is compiling all of these different kinds of risk, thinking of it from the enterprise perspective, how do we manage these different varieties of risk? The books have been given are given below. I'll be sharing this document as well so that things become easier. These are having the notes for all the units, which will help you prepare for the exam. I've shared this book by Jorian, and I have shared a book by Christopherson also on the. If you've looked at on the WhatsApp group for SAPM, if somebody has not joined, you can join right now. We had a group last semester for SAPM security analysis, and in that group, I'll be sharing all the other resources, including even the previous year papers, so that you can have a look and get an idea of what kind of questions to expect. So these are the two books that you can mainly refer to, Jorian and Christopherson. Otherwise, a lot of the matter is available online. Plus, I'll be sharing the notes, and we'll even discuss a few numerical questions. I told you in the last class, maybe some of you were not there. I was telling that a majority of the paper is actually theoretical in nature. More than 50-60%, sometimes even 70-80% of the questions are based on theory, but maybe 20-30% can be numerical based. Numericals are usually quite simple in this subject. Like we did in SAPM, we discussed a few numericals. Similar thing we'll be doing here so that you get an idea of what to expect. Some of the previous questions which have appeared in your previous question papers, we'll take them up as well. Along with the theory, along with FRM, both in fixed income securities and even in FRM, I'll try to make it more practical. I know most of you will be able to clear the exams, but the more important for us is to be able to apply the knowledge, the theoretical knowledge in our real lives to get some kind of advantage, whether it is with respect to our personal finance, with respect to either taxation or any other aspect which will be helpful in our practical lives. So one objective is obviously to clear the exams, but more important is to become, for me, it is to get you interested in the subject so that you can learn more and try and apply everything, all the concepts that we are studying in your life. Same thing we did in SAPM. If you remember, we had taken examples of technical analysis, of fundamental analysis, various stocks we had discussed. We went on screener.in, which was one website. We also went on TradingView. We looked at Money Control, various websites which can be helpful for analyzing stocks. If you're building your own personal investment portfolio, you need to be able to apply the security analysis portfolio management subject to your advantage. Same thing applies here. Although this subject, FRM, is mainly meant from a company's point of view, but some of the concepts, as we'll see today also, will be applicable even if we are managing our own portfolios. Fine. Any questions, any doubts right now? Otherwise, we'll move on to the first unit. We'll start discussing of what you can expect in the paper. Is there any problem, Harshit? Anything that you would like to discuss in more detail?
सर इम्पोर्टेंट क्या क्या है बता देना.
Important क्या क्या है that you will get to know in the entire semester, but mainly like I was telling you, आज हम numericals कर लेंगे. We start out with the more difficult things. Numericals अगर एक बारी हो जाएंगे, so you'll be sure कि हाँ at least this 20, 30, 40% paper I'll be able to attempt. क्योंकि most of the numericals they have their favorite topics. The examiners have their favorite topics which will be tested. तो आज हम numericals करेंगे. Plus, we'll try and apply some of the knowledge in stock market also. If you're managing your own portfolio, we'll apply this. So जो weightage रहेगा units का will be mostly equally distributed. You have these 5 units. The weightage in the final question, in the final paper, will be almost equally distributed across the paper, where around 60 to 70% at least will be theory-based questions, while 30 to 40% maximum you can expect to be numerical based. Okay, so let's proceed today. Okay, let's proceed with the first concept. हमने overview तो हमने last class में ले लिया था. We saw that enterprises are facing various kinds of risk, which include market risks, which are beyond the control of the company. Risk of interest rate hikes, risk of foreign exchange depreciation or appreciation, risk in the slowdown in the GDP growth, which is, recession or unemployment. Various kinds of risks are faced by the enterprises on a daily basis. Yes, Payal, you have a question?
Sir, I'm an online student. I can't attend offline classes. So you'll be keeping them separate, right? Like you'll be starting from the beginning.
Okay. You did not come for the first class?
So I don't stay in Delhi. I don't stay in
Okay.
Delhi. So I only attend online classes.
I also, sir.
Okay, how many are coming for the first time? How many did not attend the last lecture? We had a class on last Sunday. Harshad was not there. Fine. Only I think 2-3 people were not there. But anyway, for the benefit of people who are coming for the first time, who may not be able to attend the physical classes, first of all, the most of the classes will actually be online based. The first class was an exception. But generally, I also prefer, actually, I prefer to have offline classes so that I can interact with you. But having time constraints, some of you might be working, you may not have your days off, or you may be staying out of station. So we generally will be having online classes for FRM. तो ऐसे करते हैं, I'll just give a brief overview, then we'll continue with the other things. And during this entire process, while we are covering different topics, different kinds of risk, I'll try to make it more relatable to give you examples where this is applicable from a personal finance standpoint, from your personal investments, if you're investing in stock markets, if you're trading in the markets, or if you're investing in fixed income, or maybe you're looking to do your own personal financial planning. All of these concepts will be applicable somewhere. Risk management, as we know, is an integral part, not only for the companies, but also from an individual perspective. We have the concept of insurance. We have actually a separate dedicated subject on insurance, which you may or may not have studied. But I'll try to make all of these concepts more relatable, not only from the company's standpoint, but also from an individual perspective. So the companies usually face various kinds of risks. The first kind of risk is the market risk, where unexpected events may happen in the markets. Like you have an example currently going on with the war between US, Israel, and Iran that is having global economic consequences. And this is an example of a market risk where markets are going down. There is a recession in the economy. You have a lot of pessimism. There is a bear market all over the world. And plus, there's also in some economies inflation due to the hike in the crude oil prices. Since the Gulf of this Strait of Hormuz is blocked, you have seen even in India we are facing a petroleum shortage, LPG gas shortage. This is an example of market risk. Market risks are not completely under the control of any particular company, enterprise, or even the government. But still, there can be certain measures that you can take to reduce the impact of these kind of risks. Market risks can also be, their impacts can be minimized. Can you give me an example of how to tackle the market risk? Can anyone give me an example of how do you tackle the market risks?
By portfolio, sir.
By portfolio. If you're building your portfolio, maybe you can have a diversified portfolio. That is one way. Lakshay, yes?
We can do hedging and use by
Hedging.
option derivatives.
Great. We can use derivatives, futures, forwards, options can be used to reduce your risk on the downside, whether it is with respect to the currencies, whether it is with respect to the commodities, or maybe stock prices, stock indices, whatever it is, you can reduce your risk by using these derivative contracts. Any other way?
And the main thing is
Hedging.
insurance.
What is the main thing? Yes. Okay. So I told you in the first class, there are 4 ways which we also talk about when we are talking about insurance. There are 4 ways of dealing with risk. The first way is risk avoidance. You completely avoid a particular kind of risk. Maybe you are scared of road accidents, so you don't go by car at all. You completely always try to travel by metro. That is an example of risk avoidance. But in majority of the situations, that is not a practical approach. You cannot completely eliminate or avoid risk in all the situations. So that is the first method, risk avoidance, which may or may not be applicable in a lot of the cases. So the second way is risk reduction, risk prevention. That could be another way where you try and reduce the probability of the risk or the event happening, and also by taking adequate precautions. Maybe you know that road accidents are quite common and you also need to travel by car. You have no other option. In that case, driving with seat belts, driving with all adequate precautions, servicing, getting your car serviced regularly, all of these are risk reduction methods, or which minimizes the impact of that particular event, and also reduces the probability of the event happening. The other way would be, the third way would be risk transfer, where you transfer your risk to another party, which is usually the insurance company. and thereby you are paying a certain fee, certain premium to the insurance company, and they are taking over your particular risk. The fourth method is risk retention, where nothing can be done to eliminate the risk or to reduce the probability or the impact of the risk. You have no other choice. You have to retain the risk with yourself. The way to tackle the risk would be to build adequate emergency funds, contingency funds. That's the fourth method, known as risk retention, where the risk is retained with your own self, and you maintain a buffer, a small contingency fund, which can help you in these difficult times. So these are four main methods. Apart from this, you can use diversification when we're talking about building a portfolio. Don't put your all your eggs in the same basket. Basket is a very common phrase we all have heard about. So this is about diversification. Even companies can do the same thing by not investing everything in one particular product or in one particular service, or not relying only on one particular geographical location. They can try and diversify their risk in variety of ways. So diversification, risk retention, risk transfer, risk avoidance, risk prevention or reduction. There are various ways to deal with risk, which we'll discuss whenever we are talking about any kind of risk, whether it is market risk or credit risk. For market risk, what mainly you can do is you can be better prepared. You can plan the risk properly. You can try and estimate the probability of risk, whether it is a risk of a recession, whether it is a risk of an interest rate hike. You can try and plan accordingly, assigning probabilities to different kinds of scenarios. So doing a scenario analysis, doing sensitivity analysis while you're planning your investments, planning your future actions is a good strategy for companies when they're looking to tackle the market risk. So market risk, keep in mind, are not completely under the control, and they can be handled by planning accordingly, by assigning probabilities, by taking into consideration various scenarios. Then we have this credit risk, which is usually faced by banking companies or by NBFCs, non-banking finance companies. Those enterprises that are actually giving out loans, they are in the main business of giving out loans, usually face this credit risk. The way to protect is to measure the credit quality of all the borrowers. We have this concept of CIBIL score, which is to assign based on the previous historical repayment history of the borrower. You try and analyze what is the repayment capability. Plus, you can take a collateral. You can use rating agencies that assign ratings to bonds. All of these are ways to try and reduce or tackle the credit risk. While other kinds of risk are also there, we have the risk of liquidity, where let's say you buy a particular stock and there is not enough liquidity, then you are stuck with that particular stock, or you may have to pay a lot of this bid-ask spread might be quite huge. The difference between the highest bid and the lowest ask may be a lot if there is less liquidity, and that is the cost you'll have to bear because of this liquidity risk, because of the low liquidity. If you want to get out immediately, you will have to either pay the lowest ask or settle at the lowest bid if you're selling. And that difference may be huge if there is low liquidity, if there are less number of buyers and sellers. Same is the case with real estate or with property plant equipment. If the company has invested heavily in property plant equipment, they may face a difficulty in meeting their liabilities. In case they face a liquidity problem, they will, if they are unable to, they may not be able to meet their short-term liabilities. You have the risk of foreign exchange movements that we discussed last time, is usually impacting exporters and importers. As an exporter, you would stand to benefit if rupee is depreciating, while you will, as an importer in India, you will be benefiting if the rupee is actually appreciating. Over the previous years, over the previous few decades, we've seen that the export-oriented firms, including the IT sector, including the pharma sector, gems and jewelry, handicrafts, have benefited due to the depreciation in the Indian currency. But on the other hand, you have these import firms which are actually lagging behind. They are suffering if the rupee is actually if the rupee depreciates, then they'll lose out. Plus, you have risk in technology. There is a risk of obsolescence of technology. If new technology keeps on coming up and the company is not able to keep pace, their productivity will suffer, and other competition may actually take over the market. Their market share may go down if new technology is evolving very fast and they're unable to keep pace with that new development. Fine. So all of these are variety of risks that are faced. We'll discuss these in more detail later on. And enterprises have to look at various ways of measuring, trying to quantify the different risks, and ultimately trying to reduce their impact, which are posed by the most common risks for that particular industry or for that particular company. Let's now discuss from an individual standpoint. Do you think risk management is actually necessary? Do you need to cover risk, or is only getting returns more important? We are talking about personal finance right now. Do you think risk is equally important or not? Are there any investors out there? All of you are investing? Have you started investing or trading? Or no? Nobody is investing? I know Harshad does. Yes. Harshad is even managing funds. So if anyone wants help, you can take his help. And I'm also there. If you need any guidance with respect to fundamentals or technicals, I can definitely help you with that. Fine. So if people who are started investing, you should be knowing that covering your risk management, or even money management are equally important, if not more important, than actually your strategy. Actually, your technical analysis or your fundamental analysis based strategy is only one part of the puzzle. The second part is trying to manage your risk effectively. If you don't, then the chances are that you may keep getting good returns, but one day there may be a black swan event, like what happened during COVID, or like what happened during the 2008 crisis. There may be a small phase where all of your gains over the previous multiple years may go straight away in one or 2 months. If you're not managing your risk properly, if you're not managing your position size properly, that's why covering the risk is again an integral part of your personal finance. Same thing applies for insurance products. If you are only focusing on building wealth, on getting the best possible returns by learning trading and by learning investing, by focusing only on stock selection or selection of mutual funds, you're doing your SIP. That's a good thing. That's being promoted by the government. As mutual fund sahi hai, everyone knows about this. And now a lot of retail investors have started entering, but still a lot of people are inadequately insured. You know how many people are actually investing in the country? Anyone can tell me how many people invest in the stock markets in India? How many stock market investors are there in the country? Anyone can tell me?
14 crore, around 14 crore.
Right. Less than 10% of actually of the entire population of the country is investing in stock markets and equities. And that includes even the mutual fund based investments. If you take out the mutual funds, then the number will be even smaller, will be less than 5%. People who are directly investing in stocks. And this is in itself a very small number. In terms of percentage, it's very, very small. But if you compare with insurance, it's still much better. Due to the promotion by the government over the previous multiple years of mutual funds, of stocks, and all of these things, people have started investing. But still, insurance penetration is very, very low in the country. It's hardly 1 or 2%. So how much insurance do you need? Sorry?
सबसे ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट सर महाराष्ट्र मुंबई के लोग करते हैं, दिल्ली के लोग तो करते ही नहीं है ज्यादातर. अगर वो रेशो देखी जाए स्टेट
We are right now talking only about the tier 1 cities. If you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, the number will be even smaller.
Yes, sir.
That's the problem. So insurance now, yes, Lakshay is saying something.
Delhi people क्यों नहीं कर रहे सर?
नहीं, दिल्ली के भी करते हैं, but in terms, if you compare with Mumbai and Maharashtra, the percentage is much smaller.
राइट
वहां पे सेबी के ज्यादा इनिशिएटिव्स हैं जो promote they have these investor awareness programs that are conducted regularly across Mumbai and Maharashtra, but that is gradually spreading all over the country. The more accurate comparison would be between you if you're comparing Delhi and Mumbai. Obviously Mumbai is a little better place, but the difference is even huge, much bigger compare if you compare tier 1 cities with tier 2 and tier 3 small cities and small towns. So वहाँ पे the culture is gradually spreading, and as you'll see over the years, like in developed countries, you know how much the percentage is in US? Anyone can tell me? India में like less than 10% people are investing. In US, the number is around 25%. Around 25% of people are actually investing in stock markets. So as the economies mature and become bigger and more developed, the number of investors start improving, and even the investment size also starts going up. The entire market cap of Indian economy, anyone knows? Indian stock market, sorry. What is the market cap of Indian stock market? Indian economy size, we know. India's economy size is around, let's say, $4 trillion. What is the size of Indian stock market in terms of market cap? It's again around $5 trillion. While if you look at US, the size of US economy is around $30 trillion, and even the market cap of the big indices like NASDAQ and S&P 500 are also around 28, $29 trillion. So this the US economy and their stock market is around 6 times bigger, more than 6 times bigger compared to Indian stock market. So this number you will see over the years improving, and same is the scenario with insurance penetration. That will also go up, but right now the pace is little slower if you're comparing with stock market investors. Now, the problem is if you're only focusing on wealth creation by learning technicals, by learning fundamentals, by analyzing mutual funds and stocks, you're only focusing on one side of the puzzle. Risk management is going to be equally important. The problem is maybe you'll end up, if you do your SIPs regularly, you select the right mutual funds, and over time, you may end up building wealth. Over the next 25, 30 years, you may have a significant corpus with you. The problem is what happens during those 25, 30 years. Let's say 5 years down the line, there's a some major event happens in the family, God forbid, and in that case, the medical expenses may be quite high. Or what if the main earning member of a particular family passes away? What will happen to the rest of the family members who are dependent on the same earning member? So these kind of problems are very practical challenges that a lot of families face. So you need to be adequately insured also. What is the life insurance coverage that you guys need? Anyone can tell me what is the right amount of life insurance and the right amount of health insurance cover that we need? Anyone can give me the answer for this? The right amount of life insurance and health insurance. कितना होना चाहिए? You know, there is a sum assured that is the amount of coverage, maximum coverage you get. In case of life insurance, if the policyholder passes away, what is the compensation which will be given to the family members? That is the coverage amount. Same thing applies for health insurance. What is the maximum amount of your hospital bill that will be covered in case of illness or hospitalization? Anyone can tell me the right answer to this? How much cover you need?
सर हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस में मिनिमम 2.5 लाख का भी होता है और मैक्सिमम करोड़ में भी जाती है वैल्यू.
तो ये किस चीज पे हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस विल डिपेंड ऑन व्हिच फैक्टर मेनली? द अमाउंट ऑफ
Depend
कवरेज
on
यू
the-
नीड. यस.
डिपेंड ऑन द प्रीमियम, आप जो से मिल जाता है.
ओके. ओके. प्रीमियम तो है, ठीक है. दैट्स अ important factor to consider. What is affordable to your family? You may not be able to afford a very high premium, then that's you will be forced to take a smaller cover. I'm asking you, if this premium is not a big concern for you, you can easily, your family can manage to pay a certain amount of premium, then what amount of cover you need will depend on which main factor. That's a life insurance. Can anyone tell me what does life insurance cover depend upon? Kitna lena chahiye life insurance coverage will depend on some other factor. What are those most
Don't know,
important
sir.
factors? Yes. Yes,
Don't know,
Akshay.
sir. Don't.
Okay, okay. Okay. It's very simple. For life insurance, the main factor is your current financial position and your income and expenses. What I mean by this is the amount of assets and liabilities your family is having, and the amount of income and expenses that you are incurring, especially the income of the main earning member of the family. Those will be the deciding factor which will help you decide how much life insurance cover you need. Some people will have might have taken a huge home loan. हो सकता है 2 crore 3 crore का home loan चल रहा हो. In that case, the cover you would need would be a little bit higher, because your dependent members would be completely dependent on the main earning member. But if for somebody who's in a different family, who's not taken any home loan, and plus they're having no outstanding liabilities, but they have a huge backup in terms of large amount of assets, for them the coverage required may not be such high, because they're not completely entirely dependent on the earning members' income, and plus they have assets as a backup in case something bad happens. Along with this, the number of dependent members in the family is one more factor to consider. If let's say there are, you have 3 or 4 children, plus you have 2 or 3 elderly senior citizen parents to take care of, in that case, the coverage required would be much greater. For somebody who does not have much liability or much, dependent members in the family, let's say you are not even married, you don't have any children, or your parents are also earning, they're not senior citizens. In that case, the coverage may less coverage would also be reasonable. But a general rule in finance is 15 times of your annual income. That's a very standard rule that generally applies to most people. 15 times of your annual income is the coverage that is usually desirable. Let's say you're earning 1 lakh rupees per month, matlab ki 12 lakh rupees per annum. The coverage required would be how much? 1.8 crores. 1.8 crore cover would be required by you guys. Okay, that's an important factor to consider. 15 times, why 15 times? What is the logic behind 15 times? 15 times of your annual income. Why am I saying this? Or why is it a common norm and rule in finance? It'll
No
give
idea.
the family, it'll give the family coverage for the next 15 years at least. They, or plus inflation bhi hoga, it's actually less than 15 years. If you get 15 times your of the annual income of the main earning member of the family, you have a lot of buffer to get your children settled, to get your all your finances in place. That 15 times of your annual income is sufficient coverage for your entire family. That's again depends on other factors like your assets and liabilities, depends on your annual expenses and your annual income, and multiple other factors. But that's a common rule that we follow in finance. और कौन सा लेना चाहिए? If you're talking about life insurance, should you take a endowment plan? Should you take what? There are most of you might have read this in insurance management subject, that yeah, there are various kinds of life insurance, including endowment plans, including term life policies. You have these ULIPs, unit linked investment plans. You have whole life policy, money back policy, which is the best one. मतलब कुछ पॉलिसी होती है जिसमें यू कीप ऑन पेइंग समथिंग, and if something happens to the policy holder, then the family will get compensation, otherwise you don't get anything. There is another kind of plan where you get, which is known as an endowment plan, where you keep getting some bonuses every single year. There are bonuses which are getting accumulated, and even if the policy holder does not die, the family recovers everything, gets back all the premiums along with a lot of bonuses. That's known as an endowment plan. Plus, there is ULIP, which is dependent on the market returns. If the market is performing well, your overall corpus will keep on going up. At the end of the term of the policy, you'll get your entire policy, this corpus back, depending on the market's performance. This is a unit-linked insurance plan, which depends on the market's performance. The term life policy is simply you pay the premium. If something happens, then you get the money, and otherwise you don't get anything. So there are variety, plus there are other variations of this. But which one do you think is the best one? should you take a endowment plan or a term life policy?
Term life. It will
Why
get
term
cheaper.
life?
It get cheaper
Yes, it is
and
cheaper.
everywhere
Exactly.
renewable.
You might be thinking कि a term life में if you're not getting anything back, you're simply paying and paying continuously. कुछ मिलने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ेगा. So what is the point of this? You have to die to get the benefit of the policy. Then what is the actual benefit? So this is what most people think and argue. But if you need a cover of 1.8 crore, let's say you are earning 1 lakh rupee per month, 12 lakh rupee per annum, you need a cover of around 1.8 crores. If you go for a term life policy, the premium would be anywhere in the range of 10 to 30,000, depending on your age bracket. If you're younger, you may be only paying 10,000 rupees per year for the next 30 years. If you're let's say 35 year 40-year old, then you'll be paying a much higher amount of around 30,000 per month. But overall, the premium will be anywhere. This annual premium will be in the range of around 10,000 to 30,000, mainly depending on your age. Now, if on the other hand, you're going for an endowment plan, which is giving you cover for the next 30, 40 years, but and even if nothing happens to you, get everything back along with the interest, you might think this is more attractive. The problem is this premium may not be affordable for most people. If you need a cover of 1.8 crore, the premium in case of an endowment plan would be in lakhs of rupees every single year. Not everyone can afford to pay lakhs of rupees just to get insurance coverage. You have other expenses to meet. You may have a ongoing home loan or a car loan or something else, or you may have to take care of your children's education. You may have to consider about your children's marriage. You may have to take care of your elderly parents. So overall, this lakhs of rupees of premium every single year may not be affordable. And even if it is, the problem is these returns, these bonuses that you get, which are accumulated every single year, are very less in terms of percentage. They're hardly 6 or 7%, which is almost similar to FD returns. So better alternative from a finance standpoint, from a personal finance perspective, is actually to let's say instead of paying 2 lakh rupees every single year for insurance premium by getting this endowment plan, you can go for this 20,000 rupee term life policy, giving you the same amount of coverage. So your risk is covered at least. And the remaining 1.8 lakh that you are saving every single year in terms of premium, that can be invested in an equity mutual fund. If the equity mutual fund gives you a return of anywhere between 12 to 15%, you are getting additional 6, 7, 8% every single year for the next 30 years. Think of it. 6, 7% every single year you're getting extra for the next 30 years. And you have this impact of compounding. We've discussed compounding very thoroughly in SAPM. You have this impact of compounding on this 1.8 lakh rupees being accumulated every single year for the next 20, 30, 40 years. It can result in a difference in crores of rupees. So this endowment plan is kind of a marketing gimmick launched by a lot of the insurance companies, and it can even be considered a very educated scam. You don't get to know that you're being scammed. You think that you're getting all your returns, around 6-7% is being accumulated in the form of bonuses. And when LIC gives you entire amount back at the end of the policy period, even if nothing happens to you, you're very happy with it. The problem is the returns are hardly 6 to 7%, and you could have done much better if the same amount was invested in equity mutual funds or in index funds or in multi-asset funds. Wherever you are investing, assuming you're getting anywhere between 12 to 15% consistently for the next 20, 30, 40 years, this difference is actually you're losing out crores of rupees. Fine. So that's an important point to consider. Now coming to from life insurance, and even if you take into account this ULIP, unit linked insurance policy for life insurance, which is linked on the market returns, you'd be much better off separating insurance, taking this term life insurance policy separately, and investing in equity mutual fund separately instead of combining both the products. That's like a khichdi of both the things. This ULIP but actually the returns that you get are very, very less compared to an index fund or compared to a multi-asset fund. Even a difference of 1 or 2% compounded over the next 20, 30, 40 years on lakhs of rupees can result in a difference in crores of rupees. So you actually can save a lot of money if you invest in these mutual funds separately and buy a term life policy separately. Fine. So that's one point. Now coming to health insurance, anyone can tell me what does this cover depend upon? How much coverage you need will depend on which main factor?
Sir, depend on the current health situation.
Okay. Current
Financial
health
situation.
situation. उस पे तो mainly premiums depend करेंगे, right? And ultimately, indirectly, your premiums will also decide what you can afford and what you cannot afford. If let's say somebody is a very chronic smoker, and you also have a problem of alcohol, you're suffering from cancer, or you maybe somebody has had a lot of strokes or heart attacks previously. In that case, if you provide all of these details to the insurance company, your premiums will be very, very high. And if you don't, then also there's a problem. If you don't disclose everything, there's a problem that the insurance company, if they find out later on, can refuse to settle your claim. Fine. Insurance is a contract based on mutual trust and understanding. So if you do not disclose all the material relevant facts to the insurance company at the time of buying the policy, then they can ultimately refuse to give you compensation. Fine. And the main factor you'll have to consider is the city that you're living in, because your medical expenses ultimately depend on what kind of hospitals are there in your particular locality, in your particular area that you're staying in. If you're staying in a small town or small city in the suburbs, or maybe you're located in a small, on the outskirts of the city, in that case, the medical bills may be relatively less compared to a tier 1 city, metro city like Delhi or even Mumbai. So that's the medical cost is the main factor which will help you decide. And usually in a city like Delhi, in a city like Mumbai, you can easily have bills of more than 10, 20 lakhs. If somebody gets admitted in the ICU, the daily expense is around 1 to 2 lakh rupees. For all the premium private hospitals, if you look at Fortis or you look at Medanta or any big Max Healthcare, all of these have bills ranging in lakhs of rupees every single day. If somebody is admitted for 1 week, easily 10 lakh rupees will be the bill. So that's why we say for if you're staying in a tier 1 city, metro city, at least have a minimum insurance of 5 to 10 lakh rupees, health insurance. Otherwise, there may be a problem. Ho sakta hai, if somebody is admitted for 1 month, the bill may even go above 30 lakh rupees. And plus some of the procedures are not even covered by the insurance policies. So that's why it's recommended to read the policy very, very carefully. For example, this people, married women need to ensure that this prenatal and postnatal care is covered. Otherwise, even child care and all these things, prenatal, postnatal issues are not covered under a lot of the insurance policies. Fine. So this is a little bit of practical thing, but insurance is a basic essential tool that all of us need, because no matter how much financial planning you're doing, no matter how good you are at investing and trading, you may be able to build wealth in the long term. You may be able to build crores of rupees in the next 20, 30, 40 years. But what if something happens 2 years down the line? So for that purpose, this risk coverage will be quite essential. ठीक है, any problems in this, any doubts? Let's come back to the topic. आज हम बात करेंगे, we'll look at some of the numericals which generally appear. इससे once you are done with the numericals, you will see how easy it is to actually get decent marks in the paper. I'm sure even if you read in the last week, you'll be able to get basic passing marks. So one very commonly asked topic is value at risk, VAR. VAR, anyone knows what is VAR? Value at risk. VAR stands for value at risk margin. मतलब कि the maximum loss that can happen on a given investment within a specific time and is also associated with a certain confidence level. For example, if you say that my VAR is 5% per day at 95% confidence. The meaning is simple. If you have 1 lakh rupees in one single day, you can have a loss of you will usually not have a loss of more than 5,000 rupees per day, which is 5%. And this you can say with 95% confidence. Although there is this 5% probability that still the loss may exceed 5,000 rupees. But this is an important point for doing all kinds of financial planning. This is applicable for a company and also for your own investments. If you're managing your own investments or you're trading in the stock markets, you should know what is your maximum possible loss or your most probable maximum loss that you can say with 95% or 99% confidence कि इससे ज़्यादा usually we will not have a loss, and that will help you in planning more efficiently. That will help you in setting your daily stop losses or your weekly or your monthly stop losses. So this is one example given. Let's say you are planning for a wedding and you paid 1 lakh rupees to the caterer for food, but there's a chance of a rain, which means some guests may not come and some food may go to waste. So you check the past 10 weddings where the rain happened and you find that in 9 out of the 10 weddings, the maximum loss due to wasted food was only 10,000 rupees. In one wedding, the loss was more than 10,000. So on this investment or in this expense of 1 lakh rupees, usually in 9 out of the 10 conditions, the loss does not exceed 10,000 rupees. So ultimately, if somebody asks you, what is your value at risk? You will say that with a 95% confidence, the VAR will not be more than 10%, will not be more than 10,000 rupees. 9 out of 10 scenarios, so 90% confidence, you can say that the loss will not exceed 10,000 rupees, but in 1% situation, the loss may be even 12,000 or 15,000 or maybe a little higher. So how do you measure this VAR? If I ask you on your trading portfolio, Harshit, can you tell me what is your value at risk? This is useful for all kinds of financial planning, not only for your trading, for your investment, but even for companies who are planning on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. They should know what is their maximum expected loss in majority of the scenarios. There may be some exceptions, but in majority of the scenarios, they should know what to expect. So Harshit, what is your VAR? Or what is
सर
your
अभी
daily
कैलकुलेट नहीं करा
VAR? हाँ, मतलब फिर भी you have an
कैलकुलेट
idea कि daily fluctuation कितना होता है या monthly fluctuation कितना होता है? Any idea in terms of
5%
percentage?
अराउंड मंथली अगर
5%
देखा
daily?
जाए
Monthly?
नहीं मंथली हो सकता है सर हाँ
Monthly, okay. Okay.
हाँ,
Okay.
क्योंकि अभी मार्केट सिचुएशन भी ऐसी चल रही है ना, वो टाइप सिचुएशन है, तो उस चक्कर में 5% तो मिनिमम ही है, उससे भी ज्यादा भी होता है मतलब आजकल तो
Exactly. हाँ,
यस
तो
सर
ये this will depend on the kind of products you're dealing in or the kind of financial products you're dealing in. So let's say somebody is only investing in blue chip companies. Their value at risk would be much smaller compared to somebody who's dealing in small cap stocks. If you're buying and selling these small cap stocks, that too for a short time horizon, your VAR could be much greater compared to somebody who's only investing in these top blue chip companies like Reliance, TCS, HDFC. The reason is simple. Anyone can tell me what is the reason? Why am I saying this? Small cap companies का value at risk ज़्यादा क्यों होगा? If your portfolio is entirely made up of small sized companies, why would your value at risk be much greater?
स्मॉल कैप शेयर जो होते हैं सर रिस्की होते हैं ये
हाँ, रिस्की क्यों होते हैं? ये दैट इज माय एग्जैक्टली माय क्वेश्चन. व्हाई आर द स्मॉल कैप शेयर्स मोर रिस्की? अब रिलायंस का साइज एवरीवन नोज. कैन एनीवन टेल मी द साइज ऑफ रिलायंस, मार्केट कैप ऑफ रिलायंस?
कैप मिड कैप होता क्या है?
ओके, मिड कैप, स्मॉल कैप, लार्ज कैप होता क्या है? लार्ज कैप मतलब कि जो बहुत लार्ज साइज की कंपनी है, जैसे रिलायंस हो गया, टीसीएस हो गया. और जो मिड कैप होगा वो मीडियम साइज की कंपनी होगी. स्मॉल कैप होगा स्मॉल साइज की कंपनी होगी. इफ यू वांट टू क्वांटिफाई, यू टेक दिस थ्रेशोल्ड ऑफ 5,000 करोड़ एंड 20,000 करोड़. 5,000 करोड़ से नीचे है तो स्मॉल कैप है, 20,000 के करोड़ के ऊपर है तो लार्ज कैप है, और 5,000 और 20,000 करोड़ के बीच में है, यू कॉल इट अ मिड कैप कंपनी. Now, my question is, why are small size companies much carrying greater risk? Can anyone tell me the size of Reliance? What is the market cap of Reliance? The largest company
19 लाख
in
करोड़.
India. हाँ, 15-20 लाख करोड़ के आसपास साइज है रिलायंस का, which is the number of shares into the price of each share. If you multiply the number of shares into the price of each share, you will get the value of the entire equity value of the entire enterprise, which is around 15 to 20 lakh crores. अब इतनी बड़ी कंपनी को अगर डबल होना है साइज में, तो वो 1 साल में तो हो नहीं पाएगी. उसको लगेंगे 5-10 साल कम से कम, या एटलीस्ट 2-3 साल तो लगेगा, इससे कम तो नहीं लगेगा. और उसको हाफ होने में इतना आराम से नहीं होगी. इट विल नॉट वैनिश ओवरनाइट एज वेल. ऑन द अदर हैंड, इफ यू हैव अ स्मॉल कंपनी, अ न्यू स्टार्टअप, जिसका सिर्फ 1 करोड़ का सेल है, या 1 करोड़ का लेट्स से मार्केट कैप है, वो अगले साल उसको गवर्नमेंट से एक ऑर्डर मिल सकता है बड़ा सा, या एक दूसरी कंपनी से ऑर्डर मिल सकता है. लेट्स से रिलायंस ने उनको एक ऑर्डर दे दिया और उनका 10 करोड़ का ऑर्डर मिल गया उनको. So their value can jump from 1 crore to 10 crore in 1 year. And it can even go down from 1 crore to 0 in 1 year. So that's why we say the small investing in these small size or mid size companies usually carries much greater risk compared to large cap companies. So anyway, the kind of products or services, the kind of financial products and services you're investing in will determine your value at risk. If somebody is trading in futures and options, do you think their VAR would be higher or lower compared to equities?
हायर.
Higher. क्यों? Why is it higher? अगर फ्यूचर्स में
क्योंकि
कोई
इसके
कर रहा है
अंदर
इन्वेस्ट,
पोजीशन,
तो हाँ, यस.
जैसे मंथली एक्सपायरी होती है ना इनकी, तो उस चक्कर में मतलब रिस्क ज्यादा रहता है इसके अंदर.
जैसे if you look at the futures of Reliance, it is usually moving almost similarly to the actual share price. Share price एक 2% ऊपर जाएगा तो same day you will see the futures contract also going up by 2%. तो ये almost same मूव करते हैं. Then why am I saying this futures and options will have much greater VAR? You all know this concept of leverage. Anyone who can explain the meaning of leverage? अगर हम रिलायंस का शेयर खरीदते हैं, 1 लाख रुपए का शेयर खरीदना है, तो 1 लाख में जितने शेयर आएंगे उतने ही शेयर हम खरीद सकते हैं. But let's say you want to buy the futures of Reliance, or you want to sell the futures of Reliance with a capital of 1 lakh rupees, you can trade a contract worth around 5 lakh rupees. 1 लाख रुपए होकर के भी हम 5 लाख रुपए तक का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ट्रेड कर सकते हैं. दैट मीन्स यू ओनली पोस्टेड 20% ऑफ मार्जिन एंड द रिमेनिंग 80% इज बीइंग पोस्टेड बाय योर ब्रोकर. ठीक है, तो
Sir,
दिस,
that
यस.
means how much you can exploit your existing resources to get the maximum benefit.
हाँ, वो तो है ही. तो इफ यू हैव very limited capital, the broker can give you this additional help in the form of leverage. तो usually the leverage is 5 times, approximately 4 to 5 times. तो जितना भी हमारे पास capital है, if you are dealing in derivative contracts, including futures and options, the broker, or even if you are doing intraday trading, the broker will give you this additional leverage of around 4 to 5 times, and that can magnify, that can multiply your profits and also your losses. So let's say you have a profit, you buy the futures of Reliance and the stock rises by 20%. हमारे कैपिटल का क्या होगा? हमने 1 लाख रुपए हमारे पास थे, उसका कितना होगा? What will happen to our capital of 1 lakh rupees? Will it go up by 20%?
Yes, sir.
Yes, only 20%. You are also getting leverage, no? Leverage 5 गुना का मिल रहा है. So it will go up by 100%.
100%.
100%. 20% तो प्राइस ही बढ़ा है, ठीक है. 20% तो straight away बढ़ गया. But 5 times is your leverage being given to you by the broker. That means your profits will be magnified by 5 times. क्योंकि हमने 5 लाख, हमारे पास 1 लाख रुपए थे, 5 लाख रुपए का हमने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट खरीदा और वो 5 लाख का 20% मतलब कि 6 लाख का बन गया. तो हमारा जो 1 लाख था वो 2 लाख बन जाएगा, क्योंकि वो एक्चुअली 5 के ऊपर 6 नहीं है, वो 1 के ऊपर 1 और बन गया है. दैट इज द थिंग. बट देन the opposite also applies. If you bought the futures of Reliance thinking it will go up, but the stock crashes by 20%, what happens to your capital? 1 लाख रुपए का क्या होगा हमारे कैपिटल का? Yes, what will happen to our capital? It will go down to
20,000.
0 rupees. You will lose 100% of your capital. अगर ऊपर गया 20%, it went in your favor, your direction, your profits are magnified by 5 times. That is 20% becomes 100% returns. But if it goes down by 20%, you end up losing 100% of your capital. So that's the reason we say that derivatives are quite risky. And even, is anyone trading here? Anyone apart from Harshad who is trading or investing in the stock markets? Yes, Payal, do you trade? Harinder, Ravi, anyone who is trading? Vijay?
हरिंदर तो बस नोट्स बेचता है सर.
अच्छा. Okay,
सर ये
if you open your
बेवकूफ
trading
बड़ा
and
परेशान
demat
कर
account,
रखा है.
परेशान किसने कर दिया?
मतलब चैट ये हरिंदर एंड कंपनी जो है, जब भी
ओह,
क्लास
okay,
ज्वाइन
okay.
करता है खाली मतलब दिन भर लगा रहता है.
तो, अच्छा, तो उसकी कंप्लेंट कर देना ना फिर कि हरिंदर सबको परेशान कर रहे हैं. Anyway, let's coming back to the topic. The thing is, if you log into your trading account, if you open an account with a broker and you log into your trading account, you will see a disclaimer. At the beginning, you will see a disclaimer that more than 9 out of 10 retail traders lose money in derivatives. Retail traders means small investors and traders like all of us who have limited amount of capital, not the big institutions, only the small traders, or not even the high net worth individuals. Small retail traders lose 9 out of 10 retail traders lose money in derivatives, and that average loss is around 50,000 rupees. तो इसीलिए जो डेरिवेटिव्स हैं वो काफी रिस्की हैं. देयर मूवमेंट इज क्वाइट अनप्रेडिक्टेबल. स्पेशली द ऑप्शंस आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स. फ्यूचर्स तो फिर भी विल मूव अलोंग विद द एक्चुअल स्टॉक और द इंडेक्स प्राइस. अगर इंडेक्स ऊपर जाएगा तो फ्यूचर्स भी ऊपर जाएगा, या फिर स्टॉक ऊपर जाएगा तो यूजुअली फ्यूचर्स भी ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर परसेंट से ऊपर जाएगा. बट ऑप्शंस आर अ कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट गेम. दे आर impacted by multiple factors. तो हम ऑप्शंस के बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे और डिटेल में. बट ऑप्शंस यू शुड नो आर नॉट ओनली impacted by the price of the underlying asset. They are also impacted by the volatility in the market. They are impacted by the time remaining till expiry. They are impacted by the risk-free rate in the economy. They are impacted by 5 different factors, not only by the price of the underlying asset. तो इसीलिए ऑप्शंस में हमें लगता है कि बहुत ल्यूक्रेटिव है कि 5 रुपए का ऑप्शन भी 500 रुपए का हो जाता है एक दिन में. कभी मार्केट बंद होगी और अगले दिन एक्सपायरी है और मार्केट फिर बहुत बड़ी ऊपर मतलब गैप ऑफ ओपनिंग हुई है, तो इन दैट गैप ऑफ ओपनिंग यू विल सी अ 5 रुपी कॉल ऑप्शन गोइंग ओपनिंग एट 500 रुपीज. तो जिसने अगर 1 लाख रुपए बनाए होंगे, उसके 1 लाख रुपए डाले होंगे, उसके 1 करोड़ हो जाएंगे. सो दैट इज व्हाट ड्राइव्स मोस्ट पीपल इनटू ऑप्शन ट्रेडिंग कि 1 लाख का 1 करोड़ बनाने का ये बेस्ट तरीका है. But the game is actually rigged, fixed against all of us. It's completely rigged in the favor of the big institutions and the big players. उन्होंने पूरा सिस्टम ही ऐसा बना रखा है कि they are enticing, they are inviting all the small players. Ultimately, that 1 lakh will go down to 0. That is what happens most of the times. वो हमें लगता है we enter thinking that 1 lakh will become 1 crore, but ultimately in most of the scenarios 1 lakh ends up going to 0. और किसका 1 लाख 1 करोड़ बनता है? किसका बनता है 1 लाख का 1 करोड़? या तो बड़ा इंस्टीट्यूशन होगा, कोई HDFC म्यूचुअल फंड होगा, SBI म्यूचुअल फंड होगा, कोई हेज फंड होगा, कोई बड़ा ट्रेडर हो सकता है, हाई नेटवर्थ इंडिविजुअल हो सकता है. These are the people who know when to buy and when to exit. They'll be making, they'll be converting their 1 lakh into 100 crore, 1 crore. But all the other people, all the 99 other people will actually lose their 1 lakh and that will go down to zero. तो सबका 1 लाख जीरो हो गया 99 लोगों का, और एक one person or one big institution, one high net worth individual will convert his 1 lakh into 100 crores. That is how the game is completely rigged in the favor of the big players. तो उसके बारे में और डिस्कस करेंगे बाद में. Now, I'm just telling you that why VAR, value at risk, is much greater in terms of options and futures, because your losses and your profits are magnified by almost 5 times due to the leverage given by the brokers. Brokers give you this additional leverage कि हमारा 1 लाख रुपए वो अपनी तरफ से 4 लाख करेंगे. You'll be able to trade a contract worth 5 lakh rupees, and ultimately your profits and losses will be decided on that 5 lakh rupees contract. तो हर्षद is saying कि उसका monthly value at risk is around 5%. Actually थोड़ा ज़्यादा होगा, around, I think for most people it will be around 10-15%. और उसका क्योंकि आजकल market is also quite volatile. But if you are trading in futures and options, it can even be 25, 30, 50% per month value at risk. And that you can save in 9. That is obviously not guaranteed कि इतना होना ही है कि 10 कि Harshad is saying 5% value at risk. That means in every single month it will be 5%. There's an associated confidence interval involved जो statistically होता है कि he can say with 95% confidence कि अगर 100 महीने होंगे उनमें से 95 months में the loss will not exceed 5%. But there are these 5% exceptional cases where the loss can be greater than the value at risk. पर फिर हम ये कर ही क्यों रहे VAR? If those 5 or 1 or 2 exceptional cases can be there, why are we doing this VAR? क्योंकि हमें probability तो पता होना चाहिए ना, हमें पता होना चाहिए कि maximum scenario क्या हो सकता है, उसके लिए करते हैं. कभी कभार होगा कि हाँ लॉकडाउन हो जाएगा, या कभी हो जाएगा कि हर्षद मेहता स्कैम जैसे कोई स्कैम आ गया, तो या .com बबल बस्ट हो गया, तो इस तरीके की जो प्रॉब्लम्स होती रहती हैं दैट कैन हैपन once or twice, या कोई न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब गिर गया. So obviously that you cannot prepare completely for these kind of scenarios. पर बाकी scenarios के लिए at least we'll be mentally prepared and we'll be financially prepared to handle all kinds of other scenarios. तो अब ये कैलकुलेट कैसे करते हैं उस पे क्वेश्चन आता है. एक तरीका होता है हिस्टोरिकल मेथड को लेकर के कि पिछले हमने 100 महीनों का डेटा देखा, उसके बेस पे देखा कि हाँ 99 मंथ्स में हमारा इससे कम ही लॉस रहता है. So you can say with 99% confidence कि हाँ इतने परसेंट से तो कम ही रहेगा हमारा लॉस. That is based on historical data. The second is variance method, variance covariance method, कि कितना हर महीने वेरी करता है उसका कुछ वो लेकर के. Z टेबल के बारे में पढ़ा होगा शायद 6.5 में. तो Z टेबल और स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन और मीन को अप्लाई करके we'll see how you can calculate this VAR using mean, standard deviation and Z table. तो उसके बेस पे ये दूसरा मेथड है. और तीसरा मेथड है Monte Carlo simulation. This is completely computerized. This is based on lot of scenarios कि हजारों different scenarios, situations कंप्यूटर सिमुलेट करेगा और उसके बेस पे आपको निकाल करके देगा कि इससे ज्यादा लॉस नहीं होगा most of the times. But this is beyond, this is not, since in SOL you don't have a this practical component, you don't have a practical exam. So Monte Carlo simulation will not be asked in your paper, but what you can be asked is historical method and variance method. तो उस पे न्यूमेरिकल कैसे आते हैं वो हम देख लेते हैं. This is the first example of the kind of question that you can get. You are given these previous 10 days कि इतना % रिटर्न रहा है हमारा पिछले 10 दिन में, and based on that you need to tell with 90% confidence what is your VAR, value at risk. Anyone can tell the answer. What is your 90% VAR? By looking at this table, can you answer this? What is your VAR with 90% confidence? Look at this table and answer the question. ये तो बिल्कुल very logical question, very common logical question. अगर 10 दिन का डेटा है तो इसको हम अरेंज कर देंगे लो टू हाई के बेस पे कि कब लोएस्ट रिटर्न कब रहा है नेगेटिव मतलब कि और हाईएस्ट रिटर्न कब रहा है हमने अरेंज कर दिया एंड यू आर आस्क्ड विद 90% कॉन्फिडेंस यू हैव टू से तो 90 मतलब कि द फर्स्ट वन आउट ऑफ 10 usually that means with 90% confidence you can say that the first observation is 3.5%, the worst observation. In 9 out of 10 scenarios the loss will not exceed 3.5%. कैसे निकाला ये? It's very very simple. You 90% of 10 observations means the first observation, and if you have arranged it sequentially from low to high you will get your answer. That is 3.5%. और हमें अगर कैपिटल दे रखा है कि हमारे पास 10 लाख रुपए का कैपिटल है एंड यू हैव टू से व्हाट इज योर वैल्यू एट रिस्क विद 90% कॉन्फिडेंस, इट विल बी 3.5% ऑफ 10 लाख, मतलब कि 35,000 विल बी योर एंड आंसर कि एक दिन में हमारा 35,000 से ज्यादा का लॉस होने का चांस बहुत कम है, लेस देन 10% है. That's your entire end conclusion, that in 90% of the situations the loss will be less than 35,000 on any particular day given a total capital of 10 lakh rupees.
Sir,
now let's look at a second question. Yes,
सर ये 35 कैसे आया यहाँ 0.035?
that is 3.5%. जो फर्स्ट ऑब्जर्वेशन है हमने पूरे डेटा को वी अरेंज सीक्वेंशियली फ्रॉम लो टू हाई रिटर्न्स.
Yes, sir.
जो एंड इफ वी वांट टू से विद 90% कॉन्फिडेंस तो हम 10 ऑब्जर्वेशंस है उसका 10% लेंगे. 10% मींस फर्स्ट, तो जो लोएस्ट रिटर्न था वो फर्स्ट ऑब्जर्वेशन मतलब 3.5% व्हिच इज 0.035. 3.5% मींस
माइनस नहीं आया सर इसमें?
नहीं, माइनस इसलिए नहीं आएगा क्योंकि वो तो लॉस ही है. लॉस हम बता रहे हैं कि वीआर मतलब कि
Okay.
मैक्सिमम हमारा वैल्यू एट रिस्क कितना है, 35,000 रिस्क पे हमारा. दैट इज योर
Okay,
एंड इन्फरेंस. जो हमारा फाइनल इसका इम्प्लीकेशन है वो ये है कि इन 90% ऑफ द डेज, in 90% of the scenarios we will not have a loss of more than 35,000 on any particular day if we are trading with a capital of 10 lakh rupees. तो दिस यू
Okay,
कैन
sir.
गो होम एंड अप्लाई ऑन योर ओन ट्रेडिंग. की अगर अपनी ट्रेडिंग में हमें देखना है, अपने इन्वेस्टिंग पोर्टफोलियो पे देखना है, हम इसको इजीली अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. हर दिन का डेटा देखो कि हमारा हर दिन में कितना प्लस माइनस रहा है. हमारा इतना कैपिटल था, 10 लाख रुपए था या 1 लाख रुपए था, जो भी कैपिटल था, हर दिन हमारा इतना इतना फ्लक्चुएशन रहे. यू कैन गो इन योर ट्रेडिंग अकाउंट, उसमें लेजर होता है, लेजर में दिखेगा कि इतना प्लस रहा था पिछले दिन, इतना माइनस रहा था. यू कैन सी कि इतने इतने प्लस
Yes,
माइनस रहा
sir.
है हमारा हर दिन. तो उसके बेस पे यू कैन सी कि पहले दिन हमारा +3% रहा, दूसरे दिन -2% रहा, एंड सो ऑन. इफ यू हैव अ डेटा ऑफ 100 days और 200 days और 500 days और 1000 days ऑफ ट्रेडिंग, यू कैन लुक एंड कैलकुलेट कि 90% कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ कितना हमारा मैक्सिमम लॉस रहता है, या 95% कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ. अभी देखते हैं, लेट्स सी हाउ यू कैन डू फॉर 95% एंड 99% एज वेल. तो दिस इज द सेकंड क्वेश्चन. लुक एट दिस क्वेश्चन नाउ. You are given data, monthly data for 5 years, 2006 to 2010. You are given monthly data कि कितना परसेंट रिटर्न रहा है. This is 2.14%. Then you have 1.06%. Then you have plus 2.62%. Then you have minus 11.96%. These are the monthly returns for each of the months in each of these 5 years. मतलब टोटल कितने months हो गए हमारे पास? How many months do we have over here? 5 into 12, we have 60 months. Okay, so you have 60 months of data. अब हमें बोला है कि हमारे पास कैपिटल पोर्टफोलियो जो है वो 1 लाख रुपए का है. गिवन आर द कंपाइल्ड मंथली रिटर्न्स and you need to calculate a 5% monthly VAR using historical method. Anyone can tell me which observation will you choose for 1% VAR and which observation will you choose for 5% VAR? A first step here would be to arrange all of these returns from low to high. हमने सारे 60 ऑब्जर्वेशंस को हम लो टू हाई अरेंज कर देंगे. सारे करने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, बल्कि अगर हमें पता हो कि कौन सी ऑब्जर्वेशन देखनी है, based on this 5 and 1% VAR, we can only do till that, we can only arrange till those number of observations. So tell me, how many observations will you consider in the 5% VAR and the 1% VAR? 1% of what? 1% of 60 observations and 5% of what? 5% of 60 observations. So 5% of 60 कितना होता है? 3. You look at the third observation, and this is 1% of 60, मतलब 0.6. 0.6 तो मतलब कुछ observation होती नहीं है. It means the first observation. You look at the first observation, that is your 1% VAR. You look at the third observation, that is your 5% VAR. Itna simple hai. This is the simplest way. Now, which is the first observation? The lowest negative return. Which is the first observation? Look at the data and you can easily find out the lowest return in all of this. ये होगा, I think this is 0.2597. This I think is the lowest observation.
1%
2008. Sorry.
Minus
25.97 is the lowest observation, I think, over here.
Okay.
Sorry. You have a question? Anyone has a question? 2008. Look at the third last month. 2008. Look at the third last month. 25.97% over here.
Sir, why you chose 2008 only?
In all of these years, we are trying to find out. We have to arrange. I told you the first step here, if you want to find out VAR, is to arrange all of these from low to high. अब lowest return in सब में से, इन 60 महीनों में से lowest return वाला month कौन सा है? I think the third last month in 2008. 25.97. That means this 25.97% is the lowest observation month. तो 1% VAR हमारा होगा 25.97%. And third observation कौन सी होगी? इसके बाद आएगा 24 and then I think आएगा 19. So 19, if 19th is the third observation, 19.80%, which is the second last observation in 2007, that is the third observation, third lowest observation. तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Ultimately, the 1% VAR will be 25.97% and the 5% VAR will be this 19.8%. तो मतलब 90 with 95% confidence we can say कि 9 out of 100 days, 95 days में हमारा loss 19.8% से ज़्यादा नहीं होगा months में. And with out of 100 months, in 99 months, you will not have a loss more than 25.97%. That is the end conclusion. That is the end implication of this entire VAR calculation. Now you can ask me a question. So I'll try and explain in more detail. If you have any doubts, ask me right now. इस पे usually एक question आता ही है. Yes, Harshit.
सर एक
3 observations के लिए सर हमने.
हाँ, ठीक है. First question is कि 3 observations क्यों ली in 5% VAR? हमारे पास overall number of months कितने हैं? You have 5 years and 12 months in all of these years. मतलब कि 60 months are there.
60.
So
Yes,
5% of 60 is 3. That is why you chose the third month. कि 60 में से 3 महीने में ही हमारा लॉस इससे ज्यादा रहा है. ये मतलब हुआ इसका. थर्ड ऑब्जर्वेशन. ठीक है. एनी डाउट, एनी मोर डाउट्स?
सर इसमें जो हमने लास्ट वन लिया, लोएस्ट वन फॉर 1%.
Yes.
But it can be of 1.6%.
It can be for 1.6%.
For 60 datas.
हाँ, अगर 60 का 1% लेंगे दैट मीन्स 0.06 अगर if you take 1% of 6 there are 60 months overall. If you take 1% of 60 months that means 0.6 months. अब 0.6 तो कोई months हो ही नहीं सकते. It will be the first month. अगर पॉइंट्स में आ रहा है मतलब कि उसको राउंड ऑफ करेंगे हम तो 1 आ जाएगा ना, तो यू विल कंसिडर द लोएस्ट ऑब्जर्वेशन मतलब कि
मतलब
25.97.
यदि 1% के मंथली बीआर के बारे में पूछा जाए तो फिर इसका मतलब यही होगा कि चाहे 10 डाटा हो, चाहे 20 हो, चाहे 60 हो, चाहे 40 हो, चाहे 80 हो, है ना,
हाँ,
अप टू
तब वी विल टेक द फर्स्ट
100,
मंथ.
जो लोएस्ट वन विल बी.
हाँ, एग्जैक्टली. बट व्हाट इफ यू आर गिवन डेटा फॉर 200 मंथ्स, 200 महीने का डेटा दे रखा है, उस केस में क्या होगा?
देन तो सेकंड.
देन सेकंड होगा ना. तो if the observation is coming out to be less than 1 then you will have to round it off. और अगर let's say 150 observations हैं and you are asked the 1% confidence VAR, 1% monthly VAR निकालने को कहा है and there are 150 months, which observation will you take? The first or the second one?
एवरेज ऑफ द बोथ.
Average of both, exactly. That's the right answer. You will take the average या weighted average भी ले सकते हैं. अगर 1 point, let's say अगर ये होता 140 observations होती, you will take the 1.4th observation. अब 1.4 तो ले ही नहीं सकते, कैसे लेंगे? You give more weightage to the first observation compared to the second observation. ये मतलब हुआ उसका. So ultimately the objective is to find out कि अगर 100 महीने हो तो उनमें से 99 मंथ्स में हमारा इससे ज्यादा लॉस नहीं होगा. दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ 1% VAR. और अगर 100 महीने हो तो इनमें से 5 महीनों में इससे ज्यादा लॉस नहीं होगा. दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ 5% VAR. तो ये दिस इज वन वेरी फेवरेट क्वेश्चन दैट जनरली कम्स. और इसका प्रैक्टिकल सिग्निफिकेंस भी हम देख लेते हैं. प्रैक्टिकल सिग्निफिकेंस इज क्वाइट क्लियर कि अगर हमारा खुद का पर्सनल पोर्टफोलियो है, वी आर बिल्डिंग अ पोर्टफोलियो फॉर आवर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, उसका मंथली VAR या वीकली VAR या फिर डेली VAR हमें हेल्प करेगा. VAR मतलब वैल्यू एट रिस्क, नॉट मंगलवार और सोमवार. इट मीन्स वैल्यू एट रिस्क. तो इन VAR को देख करके हम बता सकते हैं कि हर महीने कितना मैक्सिमम लॉस होने का चांस है. ऑल्दो देयर कैन बी सम एक्सेप्शंस जिनको हम ब्लैक स्वान इवेंट बोलते हैं, कि कभी बहुत मेजर कोई न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हो गया तो बात अलग है. पर majority of the scenarios, in 99% of the scenarios or in 95% of the scenarios, you will not have a loss which is exceeding a particular limit. तो अगर हमें ये पता है वी कैन प्लान अकॉर्डिंगली कि हम अपने स्टॉप लॉसेस वैसे रख सकते हैं. अगर हमें पता है हमारा डेली VAR 95% डेली VAR इज नॉट मोर देन 2% and we know that 99% of daily VAR is not more than 3%. तो हम हमारा स्टॉप लॉस जो है डेली स्टॉप लॉस वो 3.1% या 3.2% इजीली रख सकते हैं. मतलब 99% ऑफ द टाइम्स हमारा वो स्टॉप लॉस नहीं हिट होगा, लेकिन किसी दिन हो रहा है तो मतलब कोई बहुत मेजर इवेंट हो रहा है and we need to be protected, so we'll keep our stop loss accordingly according to our 95% VAR or 99% VAR. कि अगर 3.1% लॉस हो गया तो उस दिन रुक जाओ, उस दिन कुछ करो ही मत. just exit all your positions and completely stop your trading. This is one way that you can practically use these VAR to manage your portfolios more effectively. क्योंकि सिंपल मतलब है अगर 3% से ज्यादा का लॉस हो रहा है उस दिन तो मतलब कुछ मेजर चीज हो रही है जो 99% सिनारियोज में नहीं होती है. आज हो रही है तो यू नीड टू बी प्रोटेक्टेड. सो गेट आउट इमीडिएटली, जस्ट एग्जिट, कि टेक योर 3% लॉस एंड नाउ एग्जिट वेरी क्विकली. इसका सिंपल मतलब ये है. And the same logic applies for companies. If the companies know कि हमारा usually loss एक महीने में या एक दिन में या एक वीक में इतना होता है, इससे ज्यादा नहीं होता, तो they can also prepare accordingly. उसके accordingly हम अपना extra buffer रख सकते हैं, उसके accordingly हम अपने trades plan कर सकते हैं. जो भी whatever you can manage your risk much more effectively if you know your value at risk. और अगर बहुत ज्यादा VAR है, let's say you have a trading strategy or an investment strategy which is having a very high VAR, you know, you have to become more conservative. You have to make your strategy, you have to design your strategy in such a way that the VAR starts reducing, starts going down. या हो सकता है हमें समझ ही नहीं आया सही से. We are not able to understand how the markets are operating. That's why the VAR is so high. So this will help you plan accordingly. This will help you analyze the situation more carefully and to be able to cut your losses very quickly. I see there's one more question given over here. 40 worst monthly returns on stock during the last 20 years are given in descending order. Last 20 years, mein how many observations are there? Monthly observations, how many months would be there in 20 years? 240 months ho gaye na? 240 months mein se 40 worst months are given to you over here. And the worst month is giving a return of minus 26%. Then you have minus 22%, then you have minus 20%, then minus 19, minus 18, minus 17, 16. इस तरीके से the worst 40 months are given to you out of the 240 total months. Now assume the total portfolio value is 1 lakh rupees and you need to calculate 5% monthly VAR and 1% monthly VAR. How will you calculate? कौन सी observation लेंगे in yes, which observation will you take in 1%?
5th वाले में सर
5%, 12
12 आ रही है सर और दूसरी की 2.4 आ रही है.
Exactly.
1% की.
So just keep in mind कि only don't take 5% of 40, you will take 5% of 240. यहाँ पे 40 worst months are given. If you are calculating the VAR, you have to consider all the observations. बाकी का data नहीं दिया तो क्या हुआ? This is out of the entire data of 240 months. So you will have take 5% of 240, which means the 12th observation. And the 12th observation over here is this minus 11.53%. So you will have in this 5% VAR of 11.5% and 1% VAR of around 21%. है ना, second और third observation के बीच में आएगा around 21%. That means overall implication will be that in 99% of the months, the loss will not exceed 21%, and in 95% of the months, the loss will not exceed 11.5%. And all of these are examples of historical VAR. Now we'll come to the second kind of VAR, which is the variance based VAR. अगर हमें पता है कि इतना स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन है, इतना वेरिएंस है, उसके बेस पे भी VAR कैन बी कैलकुलेटेड. पर उसमें एक assumption लिया जाता है. Keep in mind that this historical VAR you can apply anywhere. अगर हमारे पास पुराने डेली डेटा है, मंथली डेटा है, वीकली डेटा है, you can easily apply historical VAR. But for this standard deviation, variance and covariance based VAR, you need a normally distributed data. कि जो returns हैं वो normally distributed होने चाहिए तभी, and the variance should be constant. Then you can apply these two. If these two assumptions are valid, then you can apply the this formula for variance based VAR. So abhi let's come to the second kind of VAR. You can take a break for 2 minutes. I am also a little tired. So 2 minutes बाद continue करते हैं. We'll continue with this other kind of question that you get on VAR.
Sir,
Yes, please ask your question, Lakshay.
VAR स्टॉक मार्केट से फाइनेंशियल डेटा में ही यूज होता है.
नहीं, ये और भी एप्लीकेबल हो सकता है अगर कंपनी को पता है कि हमारा मंथली बेसिस पे इतना ऑन एन एवरेज प्रॉफिट का ग्रोथ रहता है, या इतना ऑन एन एवरेज प्रॉफिट होता है, इतना ऑन एन एवरेज लॉस होता है, तो उसके बेस पे भी वो निकाल सकता है कि हमें मंथली में ऑन अ मंथली बेसिस व्हाट काइंड ऑफ लॉसेस वी कैन एक्सपेक्ट इन द वर्स्ट पॉसिबल सिनारियो। 90% ऑफ द सिनारियोज में इससे ज़्यादा लॉस नहीं होगा। So it can be helpful even for enterprises. If you're an entrepreneur running your own company, then also it can help you in planning your finances more effectively and planning your own overall strategy more effectively.
तो वीआर निकालने के लिए हमें हिस्टोरिकल डेटा ट्रेंड्स चाहिए।
हाँ, हिस्टोरिकल, वो दैट इज हिस्टोरिकल डेटा एग्जैक्टली, उसके बेस पे बता सकते हैं। या अब दूसरा देख रहे हैं हम, दूसरा तरीका जो है वो एक्सपेक्टेड रिटर्न्स और एक्सपेक्टेड रिस्क के बेस पे भी निकाल सकते हैं कि हमें जो आगे एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं कि कितना रिटर्न रहेगा और कितना रिस्क रहेगा इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन, उसके बेस पे भी हम वीएआर निकाल सकते हैं। तो वन इज दिस बैकवर्ड लुकिंग मेजर कि हमने हिस्टोरिकल डेटा के बेस पे निकाला। वन इज अ मोर फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग मेजर कि आगे हमें इतना परसेंट रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेड है, इतना परसेंट रिस्क एक्सपेक्टेड है, इतना स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन एक्सपेक्टेड है, उसके बेस पे अल्टीमेटली यू कैन अगेन कम अप विद वीएआर। तो इसका कैलकुलेशन देख लेते हैं, वेरी सिंपल। In SAPM we had this formula, if you guys remember, हमने ये formula निकाली थी for expected returns on the portfolio and expected risk on the portfolio.
सर
अगर हमारे portfolio में, yes, you have a question?
टू स्टैंडर्ड एविएशन, मेरे को थोड़ा सा हिस्टोरिकल सम अप कर लेते हैं। वैसे भी आपने 10 मिनट का ब्रेक तो ले ही रखा है। तो
Okay.
कि हिस्टोरिकल में हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि हमने कुछ डेटा ट्रेंड्स लिए हिस्टोरिक में। हमारा जो लोएस्ट ट्रेंड हमने देखा कि वो माइनस में इतना जा सकता है, तो वो
Yes,
हमारा वीएआर हो गया कि इससे नीचे तो रिस्क नहीं होगा। Am I right or not?
exactly. Yes, correct.
ठीक
But
है,
that
अब
is
जो हम
that has a associated confidence probability. There is a confidence probability कि इससे ज़्यादा in 99% of the scenarios, in 99% of the months, or in 95% of the months, you cannot say blindly कि इससे ज़्यादा होगा ही नहीं। there is a certain degree of confidence, which is a statistical confidence attached with every VAR. Please continue.
लाइक अगर हम इन्फ्लेशन के बारे में बोले तो हम
हाँ।
देखो 5 साल में या 6 साल पहले एक जो एक्सेप्शन था वो कोरोना भी था, बट अगर हम उसको हटा देंगे यहाँ से तो जो हमारा मेजरली इन्फ्लेशन रहा 5-6% का, वो एवरेज इन्फ्लेशन या फिर वैल्यू एट रिस्क कह सकते हैं उसको काइंड ऑफ। तो वो am I right or not?
ओके, इन्फ्लेशन को वैल्यू एट रिस्क, हाँ कह सकते हैं। इन्फ्लेशन से भी एक तरीके से परचेजिंग पावर ऑफ मनी कम ही हो रही है, तो हम कह सकते हैं कि दैट इज द मैक्सिमम डिग्री ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन दैट यू कैन एक्सपेक्ट इन 99% ऑफ द सिनेरियोस। दिस इज ट्रू फॉर एवरीथिंग, इवन विद ग्रोथ यू कैन से द सेम थिंग कि ग्रोथ हमारी नॉर्मली इतनी आ रही है पिछले सालों में, जैसे रिटर्न्स आते हैं ऐसे ग्रोथ, जीडीपी ग्रोथ भी आ रही है इतनी, और इस इन क्वार्टर्स में नेगेटिव रही है जैसे कोविड के टाइम में रही होगी। So you can say with a 99% confidence or with a 95% confidence that usually the growth will be above a certain threshold or a certain limit.
ओके, तो अभी जो हम थोड़ा सा हिस्टोरिकल कर रहे थे, मुझे थोड़ा सा समझ नहीं आया उसमें। उसमें कुछ था कि 1%, 5% हम लेंगे। सो व्हाट इज द एक्चुअल फॉर्मेट कि हमने पहले हमारे पास एक डेटा है जिसमें मान लो कि हमारा 240 मंथ्स का डेटा है, और उसमें अगर 1% लिखा है तो वी कैलकुलेट 240% का 1%, और उसमें जो भी रो में आएगा उसके बाद मुझे समझ नहीं आता क्या करना है।
Very simple. If you are, let's say 240 months है, 5% निकालना है, 5% confidence के साथ VAR, that means 5% of 240 means around 12. So the 12th lowest observation होगी, we'll have to arrange all the observations in an ascending order, मतलब कम से ज्यादा में अरेंज करना होगा हमको। तो जो सबसे लीस्ट नेगेटिव रिटर्न रहा है, मैक्सिमम नेगेटिव रिटर्न रहा है, उसको सबसे पहले रखेंगे। देन यू विल हैव द सेकंड लोएस्ट रिटर्न, देन द थर्ड लोएस्ट एंड सो ऑन। तो जो 12th ऑब्जर्वेशन होगा दैट विल बी योर 5% VAR। एंड सिमिलरली फॉर इफ यू हैव 1% VAR, तो वो 2.5 आ रहा है। 1% ऑफ 240 ऑब्जर्वेशंस मींस 2.4। देन यू कैन नॉट हैव द 2.4th ऑब्जर्वेशन, या तो सेकंड होगी या तो थर्ड होगी। यू कैन टेक द वेटेड एवरेज ऑफ द सेकंड एंड द थर्ड ऑब्जर्वेशन। सेकंड को ज्यादा वेट देंगे, 60% ऑफ द वेट यू विल गिव टू द सेकंड एंड 40% ऑफ द वेट यू विल गिव टू द थर्ड ऑब्जर्वेशन।
सर वाई फॉर 60 and 40?
बाय 60 and 40 एवरेज क्या निकलेगा अगर वेट्स देंगे? if you give 60% weightage to the second observation and you give 30% weightage to the 40% weightage to the third observation, what will be the weighted average? You know how to calculate weighted average?
Yes, sir, but why not 50-50?
50-50 देंगे तो average तो 2.5 बनेगा ना? If you give 50% weightage to 2 and 50% weightage to third observation, the average will be 2.5 and you need 2.4. वो कैसे आएगा? When you take the weighted average. Okay. Fine. Let's continue with the second part, that is calculating based on variance and the expected returns. तो अगर हमारे पास दो assets हैं portfolio में, उनका हमने in SAPM we saw how to calculate their expected returns on the portfolio. You take the weight of the first asset multiplied with the expected returns of the first asset. You take the weight of the second asset multiplied with the returns of the second asset, and so on. If you have n number of assets, you take the weights of all the assets multiplied with the expected returns of all the assets and sum them all up. So summation of the weights and the returns of all the assets will give you the expected returns. This is what we had discussed in SAPM as well. And risk के लिए भी हमने एक फॉर्मूला देखा था कि हमारे पास दो assets है, अगर उनका कैसे risk of the portfolio निकालना है. You take the weight. Risk is generally expressed in terms of standard deviation or in terms of variance or in terms of beta. तो उनकी calculation आनी चाहिए क्योंकि this subject is about risk management. So we should know how we should be able to measure the risk. Either standard deviation or variance or beta. How do we measure all these different variables? Can also be asked to you. Measuring risk के ऊपर usually questions आते हैं, तो उसमें इस टाइप का फॉर्मूला लगेगा. You take the weight of the first asset square into the standard deviation square of the first asset plus the weight of the second asset square into the standard deviation square of the second asset. Then you take the and you add 2 times of the weight of the first and the second asset into the standard deviation of the first and the second assets into the this is last character is the Pearson correlation coefficient. तो जो दोनों assets के बीच का coefficient correlation coefficient है, उससे multiply करते हैं. So if this concept is clear to you, can you answer this question? Can anyone tell me कि दोनों assets के बीच में, let's say हमारे पास दो stocks हैं एक portfolio में, उन दोनों assets के बीच में क्या correlation coefficient होना चाहिए जिससे कि हमारे पास minimum risk होगा portfolio में? Anyone can answer this? What should be the correlation coefficient between these two securities or two assets or two stocks in the portfolio so that the overall overall risk of the portfolio is minimum? कितना होना चाहिए correlation coefficient? क्या everyone knows what is Pearson correlation coefficient? It is a value ranging between -1 and +1. अगर +1 है मतलब कि perfect positive correlation है. अगर -1 है तो perfect inverse correlation है दोनों assets के बीच में. और अगर 0 है मतलब कि कोई correlation नहीं है दोनों के बीच में. Let's say you have two IT companies in your portfolio. TCS और Infosys का हमने portfolio बनाया है. दोनों के बीच में almost very high degree of positive correlation होगा, maybe 0.8, 0.9 or close to 1. You will have almost a perfect positive correlation. But if you have a company in the IT sector and you also have a company in some other sector, maybe a banking stock, the correlation coefficient would be much smaller. And let's say you have stock market and you have gold prices, उनका correlation निकालेंगे तो negative भी निकल सकता है. तो इसीलिए can you answer this question now? We want to minimize the portfolio standard deviation. What should be the correlation coefficient between these two assets to minimize the overall portfolio risk? Should be +1, should be 0, should be -1. Just look at the equation and answer the question. Anyone can answer this? Harshit, कितना होना चाहिए? This is part of the Markowitz model जो हमने पढ़ा था last time SAPM में. Markowitz के ऊपर एक diversification का question भी आता था. what should be the value of this rho, which is the correlation coefficient, given at the end of the equation in calculating the standard deviation of the portfolio? कितनी होनी चाहिए? If you want to minimize the standard deviation of the portfolio, the risk of the portfolio, what should be the value of correlation coefficient? Don't you think अगर -1 होगा तो सबसे कम हो जाएगा, ये पूरा टर्म ही नेगेटिव हो जाएगा, this entire term will become negative? If this is negative, this will make the entire term negative, है ना? This thing, if it is negative, it will make the entire term negative. Right? Look at this. If this correlation is negative, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Why am I asking you this question? What is the implication of this thing? If you want to minimize the risk on your entire portfolio, should you include assets with very high positive correlation, with zero correlation, or with negative correlation? If you want to minimize the risk on your portfolio, should you include assets with positive, perfect positive correlation, zero correlation, or negative correlation? Yes,
Zero, sir.
everyone went to sleep. Negative, na? Exactly. Everyone has gone to sleep, I think. It's like I'm talking to myself. मैं ही क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूँ, मैं ही आंसर कर रहा हूँ. Right. Just wake up, everyone. This is an important
ठीक है.
point. Diversification में कहता है ना कि don't put all your eggs in the same basket. You get this diversification benefit, which reduces your risk if you are putting some money in stocks, if you're putting some money in gold, some money in bonds, some money in fixed deposits, you're putting some funds in real estate. Overall, building a diversified portfolio will help you reduce the risk on your overall portfolio. Why? Because there is an inverse correlation. अगर एक asset गिर रहा है, अगर stock market गिर रही है, जरूरी नहीं है कि gold price भी गिर रहा होगा, जरूरी नहीं है कि उस time पे property price भी गिर रहा होगा. तो जितना ज्यादा दोनों assets के बीच में negative correlation होगा, उतना better है actually. एक गिरेगा तो दूसरा बढ़ेगा तो अच्छी बात है. Your overall entire risk on the portfolio will be reduced.
पर आई थिंक नेगेटिव कोरिलेशन से चेन इफेक्ट नहीं आएगा.
Okay, gain effect नहीं है. हाँ, वो तो है. The returns will get will also. Sorry.
The chain effect, ripple effect of
Ripple
continuous.
effect. हाँ,
Yes.
हाँ. Okay.
It will be safeguard
ये है
for
कि
your.
अगर हम जैसे हम अपने पोर्टफोलियो में सारी आईटी कंपनी डाल लेते हैं, हमने TCS डाल दिया, इन्फोसिस डाल दिया, HCL, टेक महिंद्रा, विप्रो, you include all kinds of IT companies only in your portfolio. If Donald Trump increases the tariffs, all of these stocks will be negatively impacted. या अगर rupee appreciate होने लग गया तो all these stocks, because they are export oriented sectors, will be adversely impacted. तो अगर हमें रिस्क को कम करना है तो इन सब के बीच में पॉजिटिव कोरिलेशन ना हो तो बेटर है. अगर हम एक फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनी भी डालें, एक FMCG स्टॉक डालें, एक वी इंक्लूड अ बैंकिंग स्टॉक आल्सो, we include a real estate company and an infra company, you include all kinds of stocks in your portfolio from 20 different sectors, you have a telecom stock as well, so this will reduce your overall risk. एक hedging का benefit मिलेगा, एक diversification का benefit मिलेगा, and that is the entire point of this equation. जो ये equation दे रखी है, which is to calculate the overall risk on the portfolio, is having the same implication कि जब दोनों assets के बीच में negative correlation होगा, और जितना ज्यादा negative correlation होगा उतना better है overall portfolio risk के लिए. So based on these two equations for risk and returns, you can calculate the overall expected returns and the risk on the portfolio. कि हमारे portfolio में अगर दो stocks डालेंगे तो कितना हमें return expect करना चाहिए. अगर एक का expected return पता है दोनों का निकल जाएगा. And the second thing we need to know is this z-score. Z-score, anyone can explain what is the meaning of z-score? Z-score पढ़ा होगा ना स्टैटिस्टिक्स में, उससे बेस भी एक क्वेश्चन आता है. तो कुछ there are very few questions which are numerical based in this paper, और वही हम आज कवर कर रहे हैं so that the more difficult part is completely done. बाकी तो एग्जाम का आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू विल बी एबल टू डू. उसका हम थोड़ा थ्योरी भी देख लेंगे, बट वील ट्राई एंड मेक इट मोर रिलेटेबल बाय टेकिंग प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल्स जो एक पर्सनल फाइनेंस और इंडिविजुअल्स के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, या इफ यू आर रनिंग योर ओन स्मॉल एंटरप्राइज इट विल बी हेल्पफुल फॉर यू. So does anyone remember what is z-score? If I ask you the z-score for 95% confidence or 95% confidence, you give this figure of 1.65 or 2.33. इसका मतलब क्या है? Normal distribution, everyone understands. What is the meaning of normal distribution? Yes. What is the meaning of normal distribution? You all have seen this kind of a bell-shaped graph होता है. Everyone has seen this normal distribution. Statistics में पढ़ा होगा ना हर्षित? You have read this?
हाँ, तो ये इसमें जो लेफ्ट साइड और राइट साइड में
Yes, sir.
5% 95% हो जाता है.
Exactly. तो अगर मैं पूछूं कि ये चलो ये मीन है यहाँ पे, दिस इज मीन, और एक दिस इज +1 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन, +1 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन, एंड दिस इज -1 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन. तो इसके बीच में कितनी % ऑब्जर्वेशंस लाई करती हैं प्लस एंड -1 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन? एनीवन कैन टेल मी? If the data is normally distributed, then what percentage of the observations lie between plus and -1 standard deviation from the mean? पहले तो normal
99%.
distribution 99, no, that is ±3 standard deviation.
No, 50. This is standard deviation. ये जो
ये
mean हुआ
कितना
था
है? ये
50%.
कितना परसेंटेज है? ये पूरा ये एरिया, this area is 67%.
Yes.
ऐसे ही if you take ±2 standard deviations, यहाँ पे हमने ले लिया +-2 standard deviations. This area is, let's say, +-2 standard deviations. Can you tell me what is the percentage of observations that are lying within +-2 standard deviation from the mean? This area is 95%. 95% of observations will lie between +-2 standard deviations. And if you have +-3 standard deviations, यहाँ पे लास्ट में +-3 ऑब्जर्वेशंस स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन करते हैं. दिस इज -2 and +2. दिस इज +3 and this is -3 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन. इसमें होगा 99% ऑफ ऑब्जर्वेशंस. इसका मतलब क्या है? अल्टीमेटली what is a normal distribution? For people who are not understanding, just pay attention. I'll explain what is a normal distribution. Mostly in our real life, a lot of the data is normally distributed. If I ask you the average weight of all the students in your class, you may say कि हाँ around 60 kgs है. 60 kgs is the weight of majority of the students in the class. पर कोई ऐसे लोग भी हैं जो 100 किलो के ऊपर होंगे. मे बी 1 या 2 लोग हों तो बहुत कम हो जाएंगे. ये 100 हो गया, ये 60 हो गया लेट्स से. और बहुत कम लोग होंगे जो कि 40 किलो से कम हो, है ना? तो दिस इज 40. तो जो मेनली मैक्सिमम people will be lying in this area between 50 to maybe 70. 50 to 70, majority of the students will be lying between 50 and 70. तो ये area होगा let's say 67%, and this will be +-1 standard deviation. तो अगर हम पूरे सारे स्टूडेंट्स का मीन निकालें वेट का तो वो 60 आ रहा है. दिस इज द मीन. This is the mean 60 kg is the mean, and if you take out the standard deviation, maybe it is 10. 10 is the standard deviation. 10 kg is the standard deviation. तो अगर plus minus 1 standard deviation हो from 50 to 70 kgs, I think 67% of students will be lying in this area. And this is not what I am saying. This is based on statistical data. Usually for normal distribution, plus minus 1 standard deviation incorporates around 67%. 2/3 of the entire population will be covered within 67%. Within the 2/3 of the entire population will be covered within plus minus 1 standard deviation. अगर हम plus minus 2 standard deviation लेते हैं, मतलब कि from 30 kgs to 80 kgs, if you take 30 kgs to 80 kgs, 95% of the students will be covered. That is plus minus 2 standard deviation. If you take plus minus 3 standard deviations, means from 20 to 90 kgs, 99% of the students will be covered over here. Okay, so this is how normal distribution generally works. Majority of the observations in the entire population lie around the mean, while very few outliers are there, very few extreme observations are there. And as you move towards the edges, the number of observations start reducing. Now this kind of fundi, this kind of normal distribution, this kind of fundi is applicable not just for weights, it can be applied even for your heights. Most of the students will be around, let's say 5'5" or maybe 5'8" would be the average height, and then few students would be majority of the students will be lying between 5'2" to 6'2". Few students might be lying between the, or majority 95% will be covered, let's say between 5'2" to or 5 to 6'5". Right, so this gives you an idea of how normal distribution is working. As you move towards the extreme observations, very few observations will be lying over there. Now, why are we discussing this? This plus minus 2 or 3 or 1 standard deviation is based on data, based on Z table. You can find out how much percentage would be lying within a particular plus minus X standard deviation. Jitna bhi standard deviation hai from the mean, what percentage would be lying over there? Looking at the Z table, you can answer this question. So let's come to the question, the kind of question that you generally get based on this. So these are two values that you need to remember. ये 95% and 99% पे usually question आता है, कभी कभार 90% पे भी आ सकता है, that's very rare, बस most of the times you get questions on 95% and 99%. तो इनकी values Z table के accordingly are 1.65 for 95% and 2.33 for 99%. मतलब कि within plus minus this is हाँ, one more thing is अभी जो हम plus minus 2 or 3 standard deviation बात कर रहे थे, that was for both the tails, for right and left side tails. Right now we are looking at risk. तो risk के लिए हम negative के लिए ही concerned है, we are not concerned about the positive. That's the reason these values for the Z score are given only for one side, for not for the other side. ठीक है, ये एक डिफरेंस है जो ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा कि क्योंकि हमें रिस्क के बारे में हम कंसर्न है, वी आर नॉट सो वरीड अबाउट द पॉजिटिव रिटर्न्स. हमें sometimes we are not able to sleep at night because of the risk that is there, because we may have a minus 20% return, minus 30% loss. We are not so worried about plus 20% jump in our profitability. So abhi, when we are considering this subject, financial risk management, we'll only be more concerned about the negative side of things, not the positive sides. So jo negative side agar hum dekhenge, तो 95% of the observations will be covered within minus 1.65 standard deviations. 95% of the observations will lie within the minus 1.65 standard deviations from the mean, while minus 2.33 standard deviations will take care of 99% of the observations. So ultimately question जो आता है, coming to the main question, you will be given mean, you will be given standard deviation. Now you need to calculate कि हमारा mean इतना है 20 मिलियन का, स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन दे रखा है 15 मिलियन का. कैलकुलेट द 95% एंड 99% VAR कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल्स. इसका मतलब सिंपल है कि हमारा 99% ऑफ द सिनारियोज में या 95% ऑफ द सिनारियोज में इससे ज्यादा लॉस नहीं होगा. दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ VAR. So how do you calculate this? Very easy. There's a simple thing that you will have to do. If you have to calculate VAR for at the rate 95% confidence. Now 95% की वैल्यू कितनी दे रखी है? 1.65. The formula is mean into mean minus standard deviation into 1.65. This is the formula. And this, by the way, is one of the the only actually difficult part within this financial risk management subject in your final exam. This is the only tricky part that you, if you're able to solve, you'll be able to score almost perfect marks otherwise. तो मीन दे रखा है 20 का, स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन दे रखा है 15 का, और into 1.65. If you calculate this, you will get your answer. कि इतना, what is the answer? Can anyone tell me? Harshit, can you tell me what is the answer? If you take 20 minus
minus
yes,
4.75.
4.75.
Minus 4.5.
इसका भी just tell me the answer for this other second part also. Instead of 1.65, you will take 2.33. I'll tell you the interpretation, and from that, things will become clear to you. How much is this?
14.95 minus
14.95. ठीक है. Okay. Now you should understand the interpretation of this. इसका मतलब क्या है कि 95% of the situation, 95% of the scenarios, you will not have a loss exceeding more than 4.75 million. When you have this capital of 20 million, और maybe हमारा average return 20 million का आता है, हमारा मान लो 100 मिलियन का कैपिटल है, या करोड़ ले लेते हैं, ठीक है, हमारे पास 100 करोड़ का कैपिटल है और 20 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट ऑन एन एवरेज होता है हमारा 15 करोड़ का स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन है. तो ओवरऑल ये दिस इज बेस्ड ऑन अगेन एक्सपेक्टेड डेटा फॉर द फ्यूचर एंड कैन बी बेस्ड ऑन प्रीवियस डेटा ऑल्सो. तो अब हमारा फाइनली क्या आएगा? इफ वी हैव दिस VAR at 95% of 4.75 crore, that means the maximum possible loss in 95% of the scenarios will not exceed 4.75 crores, while the maximum possible loss in 99% of the scenarios will not exceed more than 40, almost 15 crores. हालांकि हमारा पॉजिटिव 20 मिलियन का प्रॉफिट ऑन एन एवरेज होता है, या पॉजिटिव 20 करोड़ का एक्चुअल प्रॉफिट ऑन एन एवरेज होता है, लेकिन हमारा माइनस 14-15 करोड़ का लॉस भी हो सकता है. इन दैट विल टेक केयर ऑफ 99% ऑफ द सिनारियोस. और ये 2.33 1.65 क्यों आया है? दिस इज बेस्ड ऑन Z टेबल, अज्यूमिंग दैट द रिटर्न्स आर फॉलोइंग नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. दिस इज द मेन अजम्पशन. तो ये एक क्वेश्चन आता है एग्जाम में, which you should be able to solve based on normal distribution, based on Z table and T tables. Okay. और जो ये 2.33 और 1.65 की वैल्यू आई है, these are values that you can even get from the Z table, but it is better to memorize, क्योंकि हो सकता है Z table मिले ना मिले in your final exam. Two or three values. ये I'll be sharing all this PDF document also, don't worry with you guys, so you can have a look. एक और क्वेश्चन ये दे रखा है कि 100 रुपए का पोर्टफोलियो है, मीन दे रखा है, स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन दे रखा है, एंड यू कैन दीज आर द परसेंटेज वार, और एब्सोल्यूट वार भी ऑन अ पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ 100 मिलियन निकल सकता है इजीली. फाइन, सो विल कंटिन्यू विद अदर न्यूमेरिकल्स नेक्स्ट टाइम. आज के लिए दिस इज इनफ. We have taken care of one of the favorite questions which appears in majority of your exams of FRM, which is based on VAR. And VAR is actually more important for people who are actively involved in trading, who are actively involved in investing. क्योंकि ये एक ऐसी चीज है, अगर हम if you take care of the value at risk, if you know this is what will happen in majority of the scenarios, you can prepare yourself much better. You can even make your position sizing better. अगर हमें पता है कि हमारा वार बहुत ज्यादा आ रहा है, हमारे पास 1 लाख का कैपिटल है और हमारा वार जो आ रहा है वो 80,000 का आ रहा है, that means almost all your capital can go away immediately. तो क्या करना चाहिए? Trade in smaller lots, trade in less quantity. That could be one way. Otherwise, keep a smaller stop loss. कि maintain daily stop loss limits also. कि एक दिन में हम 2% से ज्यादा अपना capital नहीं देंगे. We will not lose more than 2-3,000 in one particular day. So accordingly, you can devise your strategies once you know what is likely to happen in majority of the scenarios. And then there are some extreme cases which may happen on and off कि अभी भी 99% cover हो गया, 1% रहता है. That 1% is extreme loss scenario, that also we'll see how to cover. Extreme loss के बारे में हम अगली बार बात करेंगे कि अगर हमारा एक scenario वो भी हो सकता है कि 1% is still remaining. हो सकता है कल को न्यूक्लियर वॉर हो जाए, and if you have invested, you may end up losing a huge amount. So how can you estimate what is that extreme loss, and how do you prepare for it? This we'll take up in the next class. I think we'll have it in the coming week. तो कल मिलते हैं. I hope to see you all tomorrow in your physical class. What is the time? I think 12 to 2 is the class, right? For fixed income.
Machine Manisha.
Yes. So I'll be taking that class. We are doing it on a sharing basis. Can you guys tell me what all Manisha ma'am has covered till now?
Sir,
In
two
the-
starting से करा दो.
अभी तक
Time
क्या
value
हुआ
of
है?
money,
Okay.
bond, PM, modified by वो सब
Okay.
थोड़ा सा.
Duration हो गया. Duration हो गया. Modified duration is done.
Yeah.
Duration, modified duration is done. Convexity of bonds. सुनने में लग रहा
Convexity
है?
नहीं.
अच्छा, convexity नहीं
नहीं
हुआ.
हुआ.
सर मैं भेज दूंगा आपको नोट्स में जो मैम ने करवाया था आपको पूरा.
Okay, great. Just send it to me. और बाकी I'll also coordinate with her, and accordingly we'll try and cover majority of the things. Plus my emphasis will be more on your practical side कि हम किस तरीके से fixed income को use करें. Bonds में करें, debentures में करें, fixed deposits में करें, करना क्या चाहिए और सबका फायदा क्या है कि why should you go for bonds? Why not simply rely on fixed deposits? There are some benefits, there are some also drawbacks also investing in bonds and debentures. अगर similar ही return है almost 6% का, FD में भी bonds में भी 6-6.5 का ही है, तो क्यों करें उसमें? What is the extra benefit? So we look at all these things. Plus I'll also tell you how bonds can help you predict a recession, कि आगे जाके recession होने वाला है नहीं होने वाला है. That also bonds can tell you. है ना, वो पास में there is, if you are investing in equities, you should also know. Yes हरेंद्र जी,
2 बजे के
बताइए.
बाद सर मतलब क्लास मतलब है नहीं, एक सर की कैंसिल हो गई है, तो सर आप मतलब ले लेते क्लास 2 बजे के
थैंक यू
बाद.
अच्छा.
हरेंद्र भैया, थैंक
Okay.
यू.
हाँ तो सर वो बेटर रहेगा ना. तो
Okay.
मतलब
नहीं वो मेरे हाथ में नहीं है ना. The people who are deciding it, the timetable, I can convey the message, but ultimately it's up to them.
कैंसिल हो गई, बात कर ली हमने
अरे
सर.
काम
सर कह रहे थे कि कैंसिल हो गई, वो नहीं आएंगे हेल्थ इशू के
Okay.
कारण.
Okay,
तो
no
सर आप
problem.
2 बजे के बाद.
I don't think that will be possible. एक तो ये that's one more rule कि for a particular section we cannot take more than one class in a day. ठीक है, तो आई कैन नॉट
सर वो
टेक 4 hours ऑफ योर
वो मैम से
लेक्चर,
बात कर लेंगे
दैट इज
हम,
नॉट
वो
अलाउड।
मैं संभाल लूंगा।
अच्छा, आई डोंट
क्लासेस
थिंक
का
दैट
पर
विल
डे
बी
का था ना?
अलाउड। वो उसका काफी रूल्स हैं उसके अगेंस्ट, वो नहीं कर सकते। वो ओनली 2 hours ऑफ क्लासेस इज अलाउड per teacher per section. Okay, so that I don't
सर
think
वी
will be allowed.
टॉक
You can talk to some other teacher,
सर
discuss this with Manisha ma'am, हो सकता है कोई और टीचर कर ले।
हम्म,
Okay, just talk to Manisha ma'am regarding this about your tomorrow's lecture from 2 to 4. हो सकता है they may arrange a substitute teacher or something.
ठीक है सर, आप आना सर, बात कर लूंगा मैं आपको, ठीक है, बता दूंगा
Okay,
आपको मैं।
okay, चलो, see you
ठीक है,
guys
थैंक यू
tomorrow.
सर।
Bye bye, take care, good night.
बाय सर।
थैंक यू नरेंद्र भैया, थैंक यू।
Okay.
और सर आपको ग्रुप में ऐड करूंगा, ओल्ड वाला मतलब छोड़ो, थोड़े